Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. You know, over the past several years, I've gotten to play around with quite a bit of different spinner baits. I've loved spinner baits my entire career. Actually, it's one of the first baits I really started to throw when I got into bass fishing at kind of the tournament level. I mean, I was probably 14 or 15 and kind of fell in love with a spinnerbait. And they were not anything special. They were the spinnerbaits you buy like off the rack, like the Northland spinnerbaits. Just cheap ones that I was able to afford, but they caught a lot of fish. Now, having said that, 30 years ago to now, spinnerbaits haven't changed that much, but they kind of have. And that really has to do more with the innovation from companies like Picasso with this one right here. This is their Titanium Pro. And I want to tell you why I think that this may be the absolute best spinnerbait on the market. You know, there's a lot of spinnerbaits, like I said, that are out there. Almost every company has a spinnerbait, but they're all pretty traditional, being that they're poured where the wire is poured into the head. So it is a solid connection point. So they look like that. Well, Picasso has gone and really just connected one of their heads onto a wire, and in this case, the titanium wire, which we will talk about, but it allows the bait to move freely. And the first thought I have is, well, why don't we see more of that? And the reality is it's because it's a lot more labor intensive than pouring one whole unit together. But the reality is that connection point changes the entire game with spinnerbaits, in my opinion. Now, for me, when I first got my hands on this, it did not take long at all to notice just how different the bait is as a whole. You know, when you've got a fixed wire spinnerbait like that, it moves as one. Well, this bait is completely different because it moves freely. So I want to give you 5 reasons why I think that this may be the perfect spinnerbait, at least the best one that's on the market right now. And like I've mentioned, it comes down to the pivot point. That is one of the biggest features to it. So when you're talking about a free moving bait, one of the first things that you'll notice when that happens is that you get so much more movement out of the bait. So if you want to put a boot tail on your swim bait or as a trailer on this, what you'll find is that as you're retrieving it, the bait is actually moving, even though your blades are moving in a different direction. So your bait's kind of just doing this. If you add some pulses into your rod tip, you start and stop your reel handle, the bait just continues to move all over the place. So you get way more movement out of the hook area, the head area of the bait. And that can be changed based on the trailer. You know, if you want to throw a trailer that's got a bunch of different flappers, if you want to throw a straight tail trailer, if you want to throw a boot tail, what you're going to find as you experiment with this is that the spinnerbait reacts differently, which for me, I absolutely love because I like to fine tune every bait, every technique I'm using to the conditions that I'm fishing. Dirty water, clear water, windy conditions, calm conditions, you know, sunny, cloudy, type of bass that I'm fishing for. That allows me to just really fine tune the bait to exactly the technique and the conditions that I'm fishing. You don't really get that with any other spinnerbait. In the past, you've always talked about, well, what are the blade combinations? You know, in dirty water, you throw a Colorado blade. Well, I'm here to tell you, you can do that with this as well, but the fact that now your trailer choice becomes that much more important just gives you a whole different element to fishing the spinnerbait. So like I said, you can get this. This is a double willow combination. They have a single Colorado. They've got a willow Indiana blade combination. So you can get it in basically any combination that you want. But first and foremost, the first thing you'll notice is how it feels different and looks different in the water because it's just all moving all over the place. Now, a second feature to that hinge, in my opinion, that makes it so important is the fact that the bait can collapse on itself. So if you're fishing it around, say, lay down trees, and you bring it up to the cover and you bump it, well, normally what'll happen with a fixed spinnerbait is you'll hit that cover and the bait will, you know, roll one direction, come up over it, or hit it and come over, but it stays as one unit. Well, when you hit cover now, or you pulse the rod or pulse your reel handle, the bait will collapse and fold open, and it looks like a ball of bait. It does not look like a spinnerbait. It looks entirely different. If you kill it and let the bait fall, what you'll find is that the bait will just have a different falling motion than you will a fixed spinnerbait. So depending on how you like to fish it, to me, that gives the bait a much more natural look, and it also just gives you the bait fish look that we've always said spinnerbaits look like, but in this case, it's actually collapsing and just moving in itself. That, again, is different than other spinnerbaits. It's, in a way, it's like a giant beetle spin. And I think after using this, I think that's one of the reasons why beetle spins have been one of the best baits out there for 100 years at this point. It's because you do start getting that collapsing movement, and it just gives the bait a more natural flow through the water column. Now, the last thing I'm going to point out that I think has been amazing for me with respect to that hinge point is I'm finding that I'm getting much, much better hookups. Generally with a fixed spinnerbait, a lot of times what you'll find is the fish comes and hits it and they knock it, but they don't necessarily always get the bait. Well, in this case, because you have that hinge, when the fish comes up to it and sucks it in, you get that hinge will actually move into the fish's mouth. So it's free moving. Before, the fish would actually have to come up and either suck the entire bait or actually get the entire hook. In this case, when they suck on it or go up and actually try to inhale it, that bait swings into the fish's mouth. So not only do you get, in my opinion, much better hookups, I have found that my hookup percentage is phenomenal. I also think that you lose less fish because when that fish comes up and jumps, now you have a hinge point that takes away a lot of the leverage that the fish had. So from a hookup to a landing percentage, I have found that the spinnerbait has been fantastic. Now, those all relate back to the fact that it's a free swinging hinge, but the Titanium Pro also has titanium in its title. Well, the reason for that is you've got the titanium wire, which to me is probably the best spinnerbait wire for a couple of reasons. One, it's basically unbreakable. I mean, you can catch so many fish on this, you can twist it up and it always goes back to the shape that it had. So that's the first main thing with titanium, right? So your spinnerbaits last longer. You pay a premium for it, but you get a ton more use out of it. In fact, you get so much use out of it that generally what happens is you wear the hook down before you actually wear the wire down. The second key to the titanium wire, though, is you tend to get much better movement out of the wires. Now, for me, I've always been a huge fan of spinnerbaits with thin wire because you get better movement. The bait kind of collapses a little bit more. When you pulsate it, it looks a lot more natural. I think you get a lot more bites. I think it creates more vibration in the water column, which helps the fish find it. A lot of positives here. But the reality is you're going to have better movement out of the wire, and at the same time, it holds up better. Now, the fifth thing I'm going to point out here, and I've actually pointed out like 20 different things, but the fifth main point here that I'm going to point out as to why I really like this goes back to what I just said. With titanium wires, a lot of times you wear the hook down before the wire actually breaks. Well, if you have a dull spinnerbait hook, that's not a good thing. Well, in this case, you can actually swap out the head. You can actually slide that rivet up and take off the head and put a new head on so that you have a super sharp hook and you're ready to go. So it's just another feature that's amazing. They've utilized the same idea that they use in their different series of umbrella rigs with the spinnerbait here. So from that standpoint, if you do wear down the hook, you can go ahead and change it. If you want to put a different style on, you can go ahead and do that too. But it's just it's a dynamite spinnerbait. I'll put a video at the end here of me in the fall just cracking them on this thing so you guys can see it. I would love to go out and actually use it on the water right now for you, but we have a foot of ice still, on the lakes. But check it out. It's the Picasso Titanium Pro. I'll put a link in the video description for you. This is the Berkley Power Bait, Power Stinger on the back. This is actually one of the trailers that I've done really well on with this. Great combination. Check it out, guys. If you like to throw spinnerbaits and you haven't tried this one yet, I truly believe this is the best one that you can buy on the market right now. I've been blown away by it. You'll probably hear me talking more about it because I got a little something that works really good on it that might be core tackle related, but I can't share that with you yet. Anyways, Thank you for the support, guys. If you've got any good trailers that you like to use on your spinnerbaits, throw it in the comment section. I'd love to see what your trailers are that you prefer. Otherwise, hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Stay tuned. We'll have a new video coming out tomorrow for you.